Hello and welcome back. This is video number 2 and we're going to talk about how to use the video tutorials feature or how to get access to the video tutorials, and we'll talk a little bit more about the layout and all that so that we can get on the same page. So not all cPanel users are aware that you can actually get access to the video tutorials. cPanel itself actually offers you a lot of basic tutorials within its website so that you'll get access to understanding, okay, how do I use this feature or how do I use that feature? Because we're not going to be able to cover every single feature in this video course. In fact, what I'm trying to do is cover videos that are really not covered, more in-depth views rather than just how to use cPanel in general. So once you log in, what you need to do is scroll down all the way down to the bottom and click on documentation, and at this page you will be able to access the video tutorials. And as you can see, there are a variety of different types of documentation, like videos and also written documentation. Now, it used to be in the past where cPanel would add the video tutorials inside of the cPanel, but now it is actually on the outside. So I want to make sure that you understand that so you know where to go if you ever need to get access to some basic video training. Now what I want to talk about is the user interface. Some of you will have different user faces than what you're seeing on the screen here, and that typically is because of the style. So you can actually change the style. So most of you will have something that looks like this. And it really depends on your web hosting company. Some web hosting companies will actually customize the cPanel with their own user interface, with their own icons, and all of that. Now, what usually holds true and stays the same is the actual words on the sections and on the actual icons. So the icons will be slightly different. And the reason why I'm going over this with you is because some people might be confused because it looks a little bit different. So what you can do is up at the top, you can click on this little person here and click on change style. Now, if you click this, you will be sent to this page. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more so that you can see it much clearer. So there are different styles and different skins, as we call them. And the basic one looks like this. And then we have the dark version. But if you'll notice, the icons are very similar and very much the same. The only difference is the background. So the light version, the same as well. So I would say the majority of you probably have something like this. Now this is the very old style. Some of you will have this and you'll see this, but it's all the same. But if you notice, the similarities is the section name and then of course the actual name of the option. So for example, file manager will always be file manager and so forth. So let's say, for example, I'm going to go back up here, and currently I am on the retro style, but let's say that I am going to use the basic style. So all you have to do is look through the styles that you want, click on apply to the one that you want, and it'll reload with that style. And that's it. Now, if we go back to the main screen where all of the options and the features are located, you will see this. So like I said, depending on the style that you choose, it might look slightly different. But at the end of the day, typically the things that do not change are the actual titles of the options. Like file manager is going to be file manager across the board. Now you're going to see different sections. Some of these sections will be different. Some, as you can see, you can actually move these sections around. So I can move this section further down here. So just keep in mind that yours might be a little bit lower, yours might be higher. So really depending on the web hosting company, some will leave it at default and some will get all fancy and move things around and customize it with their own logo. But it's all the same thing at the end of the day, unless you're using a web hosting company that is not using cPanel, which are very far and few. So let me just run through real quick. So you have files, you have file manager, you have images, you have directory privacy, which enables you to tell the system who can actually access certain directories. We have FTP accounts. We have backup wizard, which we'll show you how to use later on. We have disk usage, which will show you how much disk space you have left. And then of course you have databases, which is PHP myadmin, which is where we're going to actually look at the database. But first you'll need to create a database first, which you can do either here or here. You don't really need this. And these are for advanced users here. Then you have domain names such as site publisher, add-on domains, subdomains, redirects, and more. We're not really going to cover this, but subdomains, as you know, it's basically adding a keyword .yourdomain.com. So it's going to be a subdomain of the domain. And then of course you have email, which you're going to be able to create email accounts here. You're going to be able to create autoresponders. And in this case, the sense of autoresponder is just going to respond with an email. So you could set up an email address and tell people, hey, email this address and you will be sent an automatic response, an email with a secret code or something. You could do that. You could also forward all email from one email to another email here. We have email authentication, which we'll talk about more later. And we'll have spam assassin, which will enable you to protect your email address from spam. Then we have metrics like AW stats. There's other metrics as well, but these are different types of stats. And then of course you have security, and then IP blocker allows you to block IP addresses, and hotlink protection is great as well. So if you click on hotlink protection, what this will allow you to do is say, okay, I've uploaded a bunch of zip files and I don't want so-and-so, some other website, linking to the zip files and then getting people to download the zip files. So you can actually prevent other websites from linking to you and basically essentially using up your bandwidth. Then you have software, which the majority of these you will not really use. You will run into soft tackless, which we'll talk about later down the road. And then of course you have advanced options like cron jobs, which you will usually set up whenever you install a web script. And all these other things you won't really use as much. You will use error pages, which we'll show you at a different video as well. Then we've got preferences, which is just change style, change language, and all of that, change your password. And then of course you have soft tackless. Hello and welcome back. This is video number 3, and we're going to talk about how to create a MySQL database. And then we'll talk about, in addition to that, how to insert data into a MySQL database, how to look at a database, and how to understand the basics of it so that if you ever need to do this in the future, you can. So when it comes to installing a MySQL database, it's actually a very easy thing to do. It's simply click, and a few clicks, and you're done. And I'll show you exactly the step-by-step process of doing that. However, that said, how do you go about inserting data into the database if you ever need to do that? Well, this is often underutilized, but needed in the long term whenever you're running your website. So with that said, let me go ahead and show you how. So to create a MySQL database, it's super easy. Let's start at the top. So make sure that you're logged into your cPanel, and what you want to do is scroll downwards and look for databases. If it's different, then basically what you want to do is look for the MySQL database wizard, and this will walk you through step by step. It's the easiest way to go. So first things first, click on this, and then it's going to ask you what you want to name your database. Now this right here is going to be your domain name, so it's going to be different for different people, and you don't have to worry about that. So just enter a database name, so we'll say DB, and this could be anything you want. You just need to remember what it is. Click on next step. And then you want to create a username. So the username or the user has access to the database. So this is separate. So you're creating a username and then you're creating a separate database so that user has access to that user. All right. So let's put that in here. We'll just say user1. And then of course you want to do a password. And what I usually like to do is click on password generator, because then you choose a very complex password. So you can click generate password here. I'm going to pause this video right now and create a random password, and we'll copy it down here. So once you're done with that, you just click on the checkbox that says I have copied this into a safe place and I am ready to use the password, and then it automatically enters it here. So as you can see, it is a very strong password, and we click create user. The next step is step 3 is to add the user to the database. And to do that, all we have to do is click on all privileges and click next step. And that's it. So now what you need to do is, hopefully you have saved the password to a very safe place. Usually what I do is I open up Notepad and then I save it here. Now, in addition to that, I usually try to save this right here. So if you're installing a web script, typically what it'll do is it'll ask you for your database name. And the database name is the full text between these quotation marks. So I'm going to copy that over here. So that's the database name. So I usually do db equals this, and then the user equals this. And keep that in a safe place. So as you can see, that's how easy it is to create a MySQL database. Now what I want to do is click on return to MySQL databases. And if we scroll down, we can see that the database has been created. Now, if I go back to the outside here, and I'm going to click on the logo, and that just brings me back to the home page. I'm going to go back down and look for PHP MyAdmin. What this allows you to do is it allows you to take a peek at the database itself. Now, I will warn you, and I will say that do this very, very cautiously, because any mess up, you could potentially mess up your whole site. But I wanted to show you this because sometimes if you have basic detective skills, you'll be able to kind of get an idea of what's going on inside the database. So if you click on PHP MyAdmin, it'll open up and it will allow us to edit specific databases. Now, obviously, you want to find the database that you just named. So in this case, it was the DB base. So it's this one right here. And we can click on here. So we can see that there are no tables found. And the reason why is it's an empty database, right? But let's say, for example, that we choose a different database that has data inside of it. So what I've done is I've gone into a WordPress site database. In this case, I'm not going to show you the username and password on all that, but I want to show you some of the basics. So whenever you install a WordPress site, for example, it will have, install plugins and all of that. And sometimes you'll see plugin database tables inside of here. So sometimes you can actually edit the data that is inside of these tables. But if you're just curious, just come in and take a look and see what happens and see inside of it. Now, obviously, I would be very, very careful if you are editing a site that you really care about. But by doing this and just looking at it, not really changing anything, this really gives you an idea of what is happening on the back end of your website. And the reason why I'm showing this to you is because in the past, I used to do this. And whenever I came across an error, or maybe there was something on the site that I couldn't change on the front end, sometimes I would go on the back end, like right here, let's say WP comments, for example. You could see comments and all that here. So what I'm showing you this is you can actually replace existing data with data that you want. And just coming through here and being able to see what's happening on the back end really allows you to see what is happening in your site. Now, this is very useful just in case you get locked out, especially if you get locked out of your website and you have to change your username and password, but it just won't let you in. So what you could easily do is you could come down here and go under WP users and then just change the password inside here. So that's why I'm showing you this, is because there are potential opportunities in the future if something bad happens that you could potentially come in and get things fixed. But obviously, if you don't know what you're doing, then you will need to consult someone that does. But hopefully that gives you a better understanding on how MySQL databases work when you create them, and then when they begin to populate, everything happens right here.